I'm here with Tim, the only Tim in the entire universe. Tim Cato to break down the Mavs offseason, Christian Wood starting, Jalen Brunson, and just everything Mavs. Coming up on Locked On Mavs.
Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Well, welcome to Locked On Mavs. It's one of your co-hosts, Isaac Harris, one half of Locked On Mavs, contributor to Mavs.com. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening in your car, hey, just don't do this while you're driving, but go to YouTube and in the comments below, if you want to just put anything below, whatever you guys normally put, but I want you to answer a question. Who would win in a game of one-on-one between Tim Cato and Tim McMahon? Who would win that matchup?
Ooh, it's a good question. I'd
Would he
love
just
to
post
see.
you up?
So I've played with McMahon before. I have not
Oh.
played one-on-one against him.
Okay.
He does have a size advantage. He is a post-up guy. I'm younger. I got younger
Sure.
legs. Now I got awful knees, but I would like to think that I still got a quickness edge.
Yeah.
My jump shot, I was in the gym for the first time in a while, and took me about an hour, but I got it back up to speed a little bit. I was making 45% of my shots. Now that's all shots in an open gym, uncontested. But hey, man, we're taking gradual strides. So
I just want to say, if you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing out, because Tim has a glorious, beautiful tank top on, and when you have guns like Tim, see, I'm going to screenshot this right now. When you have the confidence to rock the guns like Tim, then you got to do it. See, I'm not in good enough shape to wear a tank, but I'm envious of you. So,
I mean,
you got it.
You've been
Looking
outside
good.
in Texas lately?
We
It's
literally were like
almost-
old men before we started this pod. We're like, yeah, I just saw a 30% chance of rain in a few days, and it's gonna be good.
Yeah,
So,
I was telling you, I think I'm going to become one of those guys who's just like, anytime it's going to rain, I'm just going to say, oh, we really needed it.
we really did.
If it's hot out, it's the humidity that gets you. Now, would I become more obnoxious than I already am? Yeah. But maybe that's what I'm going for, if you really think about it.
Okay, Mavs fans, you already follow him on Twitter, but he's host of 77 Minutes. Okay, it used to be 77 Minutes in Heaven, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can call it either one.
Okay,
I just kind of made an executive decision to call it 77 Minutes. I think,
it's clean.
yeah, if you really go look out around the internet, I think it is still called 77 Minutes in Heaven. But,
Yeah, well,
either
way, just type in 77 Minutes. You guys know you're listening to it. Subscribe to it. Obviously, Tim is one of the only full-time beat writers covering the Mavs for The Athletic. And one of your stories a while back, I guess, I don't know, all the time's going together at this point, but you just casually broke Christian Wood's going to come off the bench. And, I don't know if it's just a testament to where we're at in the offseason, and Mavs fans, we just want anything at this point. But then it just sent Mavs fans down just an endless, oh my gosh, what? Christian Wood off the bench? Just what were your thoughts when you came across that, typing it up? Did you know it was going to be a big deal? And you're like, oh, wow. Or was it surprising to you?
I usually know when things are going to be a big deal. This one surprised me a little bit. So I guess here's the thought process I had. I was told this. I reported it. I was told that, by somebody within the Mavericks who would know that this was the plan. But I got sick the week that Summer League started. And so I was just kind of off the grid. I didn't use that anywhere. I wasn't publishing anything. I was sick. And by the time I write that article, Jason Kidd had already came out, right? And he had said Spencer and JaVale were starting. He had just volunteered that information, right?
Yeah.
I saw that, even if I didn't know the information that I did, essentially as saying that Christian Wood was coming off the bench. There was also a comment he made that really only made sense. I think you guys discussed this on this podcast at some point on one of these podcasts, about the bench having more scoring.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
also
yeah.
indicated that Christian Wood, to me, was coming off the bench. I don't think there was any scenario where the Mavericks would have looked at what Reggie Bullock did in the postseason, especially down the stretch of the season, and looked at what the benefits of having two wings on the court at all times, especially when Luka and now can, as Jason Kidd said, Spencer were going to be the two guards, players you don't want guarding, key defensive assignments. There was no scenario ever where Bullock was going to, be the player starting or, be coming off the bench in favor of Christian Wood. Now, I did think there was a scenario where Christian would be starting next to JaVale once it got out there that JaVale was going to be the starter. And then it would be Spencer coming off the bench.
Yeah.
I also think that there's a scenario where JaVale should not be the starter and Christian Wood should be the full-time 5. But once Spencer and JaVale got, again, Jason Kidd just volunteered that information. Once he did, to me, it was just very clear. And so it was good to, since I had been told this, it was good to actually go through and say, this is the expectation.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, and again, I'm so versed in the Mavericks universe, and certainly I have conversations with people, and I know how highly they think of Bullock and what he did last season. So I fully admit to being influenced by that. I'm not saying that every single person should have interpreted what Jason Kidd said as meaning that, but I'm telling you right now, that is what that meant. Jason Kidd essentially said Christian Wood was coming off the bench without saying it. And so I think that's why I was a little bit surprised when everything, when a lot of Mavs Twitter was shocked, upset, had opinions on it. And I guess I shouldn't have been, given the way that the offseason had, kind of trended in a negative manner, let's say. But that's why it surprised me a little bit. And I think it took me by surprise just a teeny bit.
Should we care about, I think when that news came out and, your story came out about it, I think some Mavs fans immediately went to, well, he's our second best player on our team and he's in an expiring contract. It's a contract year. Are we like ruining this relationship already? For me, it was like, hey, we kind of like bought low. Like there's, they said the whole, he's got to prove it. We're proving it to him too, kind of both sides when we could first talk about it. So do you care about any of that? Is that a big deal? Are you looking at it that far zoomed out of, ooh, man, they're kind of risking a relationship type here?
No. I don't care about it until I have a reason to care about it. I don't care about it until there is substantial evidence that Christian Wood is bothered by it, that he's unhappy with his role. Again, the very clear expectation for the Mavericks is that Christian Wood is going to play far more minutes than any other big man, even coming off the bench. JaVale McGee is not someone who's going to average more than 25, and I doubt he even gets that next season. Maxey is Maxey, somebody who you want to purposefully limit his minutes throughout the season in the hopes to keep him healthy. There's no question that Christian Wood is going to be, the most influential and important big man going into next season on the roster. And now there are still questions. I'm not saying anything I haven't said before. It wouldn't shock me if he's traded at the deadline. If this experiment does not work, if there are reasons why the Mavericks just are not sold on it, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they considered moving on from him again. But there's also a scenario where it works really well. There's a scenario where he pushes his way into the starting lineup, probably at least at first as the 4 next to JaVale, and Spencer starts coming off the bench. But there's a lot of permutations here, and I'm just really interested to see the various looks and what the Mavericks can do with it. But again, until Christian Wood, until there's an indication that he is bothered by not starting, because I know they've had conversations with him about this already. Until that happens, no, I'm not worried about that at all.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back talking about the Mavs offseason. This pod is brought to you by our best friends, Built Bar. I literally just got a package in the mail the other day that Built Bar sent me and was like, hey, we have a new flavor. Try it out. From the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built Bar. If you haven't tried it, you need to try it. But guess what? Your friends at Built have given coconut brownie chunk the Puffs treatment as well. That's right. Coconut brownie chunk Built Bar flavor you love in a deliciously, what a word, chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. This fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling right now and listen. They're good for you. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, all delicious. All Built Bars are made with collagen protein with your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. The best part about Built Puffs is, of course, they taste amazing. Delicious coconut rich sweet brownie, creamy marshmallow. Stop fascinating. Stop fantasizing right now. Even Bryce at Locked On Rangers loves Built Bar. Go to built.com to order your box. Built.com, promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your order. Promo code LOCKED15. All right, Tim. Just loaded question here. Are the Mavs done? Are they done with the offseason? Is this the exact roster that we're seeing, on media day in September?
I would be shocked. I really would be. What have you guys been saying about that? Like, where are you guys falling on it?
I'm just checking my phone every day, every hour, just waiting for that trade. So I think that the Dragic stuff was so interesting. And, I was talking to Bob Sturm earlier this week, and we were talking about Dragic a little bit. And it was like, not that I thought Dragic is like all-star, playing 30 minutes a night, but just from my standpoint, I'm like, it looks like there's a clearly defined role that he could play if he signed. And the fact that they looked at it, considering what Dragic said is true, and it's like, hey, you're not going to like really have a role, or like you're going to have like the Trey Burke role kind of. That told me it's like, all right, they're banking on something else that's going to come at some point this offseason. So am I dumb for feeling that way? Do you feel the same way? Do you expect something else to happen in the fallout of Durant, Mitchell, whatever it is?
I mean, I have a high expectation or belief that's what the Mavericks are planning on. I don't know it with certainty, but I would be really surprised if they aren't, still making calls, checking in, and just making sure that, the teams that are poised to make trades before next season starts are aware of, just how the Mavericks' willingness to facilitate moves like that. Certainly there's several guards in Utah who really any of them would make sense on the roster. And, I think that still seems like a very possible thing that would happen before the season starts. I mean, I guess it's possible Donovan Mitchell doesn't even get traded. And currently right now, as we stand, it seems maybe a little bit more likely than less likely that Kevin Durant stays in Brooklyn. So, that's the thing about banking on being, not just making trades to improve the roster, but being a facilitator as a third team of trades. You've got to make sure those trades actually happen. And so I guess there's scenarios where the Mavericks could enter next season with the roster as it stands right now. I still don't think that's very likely. I still think that they would make some sort of move around the edges. And I think the Dragic stuff that you said is a good example of that, because I like you, I find it very hard to look at that roster and not see a clearly defined role for him, even if it's closer to Trey Burke than Spencer Dinwiddie last year.
Yeah.
We can agree on that, but he's not Trey Burke. He's way better. And I will say, I given who Dragic's agent is, I don't think it's a big issue, but I would be hesitant to be, if those comments can be taken as Dragic being annoyed with how the negotiations went with Dallas. I don't know. I would just be hesitant if I'm Dallas to do that when Bill Duffy's your agent.
I was gonna say, it's not like Duffy has another one of a client in Dallas,
another Slovenian even.
Yeah. So Jordan Clarkson, Pat Beverly, I mean, they would fit in Dallas, right? I mean, I feel like, people, even, your latest Q&A, I think it was on the 14th. People were asking about Dwight. Somebody asked you about Dwight Powell on the roster. And it's like, yeah, Dwight's on this expiring $10-11 million deal. Look around the league and it's like, we were joking not too long ago, Dwight for Kobe White, Dwight for Pat Beverly. Are there other guards out there that do they need another ball handler off the bench? You think that's the route they go, or is it a wing?
I would be more focused on ball handling, but you've also got to consider Hardaway may be one of the players shipped out, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea that Hardaway is going to sort of be the quasi wing that you fill in behind Bullock and Finney-Smith, if he's out the door, then yeah, all of a sudden you are a little bit more needing, something there. Certainly at least with the eye towards the postseason, because I think Josh Green will still get a lot of minutes next season.
Really? You think Josh Green has a big role? I'm really curious about this.
Oh, actually, I don't see why it wouldn't be similar to the one it was last year, right?
Yeah.
How much has it really changed on that front?
Well, I was fascinated by him being on the team this year because, he's entering, he's getting close to this range of like, they kind of got to decide of like, do we want to, is he part of the future? Are we going to, he's a couple years in and he didn't have a role too much in the playoffs. So my whole thing going into the offseason was, is he going to be on this team if they're not confident that he's going to have a role? Because then you're just going to have like another season of him like barely playing. And then like you have to decide if you're going to like keep him or not for another guaranteed year. So I was just really fascinated by his Instagram, highlight stuff and Vegas looks great working out. But
do you remember him getting into the rotation? And did you guys also feel like it almost felt like Desmond Bane had just popped off and Jason Kidd was like, all right, I'll play the rookie that we didn't draft instead of him. Do you remember that?
He's got to play. But in his stretch in the regular season, I thought he played well. And I mean, he's a great passer. He's super athletic and stuff. I do think back to, the Utah series to when they put Rudy on him and he's just like kind of dribbling around in a circle and Rudy's just like, all right, are you going to stop dribbling right now? Or what are you about to do type thing? I don't know what his role is next season. I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say two things. I'm not certain he's on the roster, and I hate to say it, I'm not the biggest believer in him. What worried me down the stretch of last season was how many times that he could get 10 minutes and basically not record a stat. It's rare for players. It's one thing for a player to be inefficient, for a player to be turnover heavy, for a player to need to work on their defense. You still have to make an impact on the game in some way. Even if it's not, efficient, or even if there's a lot of mistakes within that. It did worry me, like even his passing, which we saw for that first month, a lot of it felt like that faded a little bit. Like how many wow passes did you see from Josh Green in the last 2 months of the regular season? I don't remember that many. So that worries me. Just the overall lack of impact, lack of raw impact, down the stretch of last season. And that said, he is really the only young player on the roster that isn't, fully realized. Jaden Hardy now, but last season that was certainly the case. And if he's on the roster and if the Mavericks can get, usable 10, 15 minute stretches out of him, like they did a lot of last season, I would find it hard to believe that, that isn't the approach that they take, if only to develop him to the point that maybe somebody else is interested in him. Because again, they, it does seem like a lot of their most reasonable path forwards, in terms of team building is through trade, and they don't have a lot to trade. And so just mothballing him at the end of the bench, I don't think helps anybody. That said, maybe he does get traded before the start of the season. Maybe he's in whatever deal is there. So
if you had to put money down on one of the following two players being on the Mavs next year, Kyrie or Russell Westbrook, which one would you put the money down on?
You're just asking everybody this question. I heard you ask Gallagher. So
if you had, he's like a big Russ guy. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, he lived in OKC.
Oh yeah. Okay. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. I guess I knew that. He's
you've known him
shared
for a
this
while.
with me over the years. Yeah, exactly. Russ, I think it is Russ out of the two. I think that, and again, we're putting like penny bets on 1 to 1,000 odds, and I know that's like baked into the question. I just wanted to clarify. I think of the two, I believe the Mavericks when they say he's not really a culture fit, and
talking about Kyrie, right?
Talking about Kyrie. It's the Mavericks really believe, and I think rightly so, that the culture they built up last season, had a significant impact on the success they were able to have.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to dispute that. I think it's hard to argue. You saw how much those guys liked each other and, got along and bonded. And for all those reasons, I think they'd be really hesitant to do anything to disrupt that. I do really, there is a price that you'd have to think about it with Kyrie, right? If it really on an expiring specifically, and with the understanding that the team is light on ball handling and maybe hasn't improved, maybe they have, but maybe they've only stood pat, and if you do that, especially in the Western Conference, that's going backwards. I do think that at some point you have to consider that, but I think of those two, it's probably more likely that Russell on a 1-year deal that they say, hey, maybe it works, but I don't know, man. I mean, it's practically zero for both. Maybe it's literally zero for both, for all I know. So that's a hard one to answer.
Watch them make a Russ trade tomorrow, and it's more of like a salary cap shedding move for an expiring contract, and I'll read your athletic story about it.
It would be fun.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then I got to ask Tim here about Jalen Brunson. Not too much about Jalen Brunson, but a few questions about it. All right, we all watched I watched a little bit, and I just I can't watch it anymore. The intro presser, JB in New York. I'm happy for him. Great guy. I know this has to be a really cool moment for him. For Mavs fans, this tampering stuff, I find myself in one side saying, all right, I care. I want to see the Knicks get dinged for this. Another side of me says, is this just another version of the last 2-minute report that I'm just going to see it and be like, all right, cool. We didn't get anything from it. How do you feel about the tampering stuff? And then do you expect something to come from it?
At this point, I would say the NBA with almost sure certainty will investigate in some manner. I am obviously not in any position to know what they're going to find. The NBA, when they have cases like this, when they do investigate tampering, it's not the court of law, but it's not dissimilar to how the court of law operates. They have to go in assuming innocence and finding evidence, and then it's been explained to me that it really will rest upon what evidence turns up. And we've talked about this. A lot of people have talked about this. I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be really hard to legislate, how much Sam Rose, Jalen's agent, talks to his dad, the president of the Knicks, and vice, the same thing goes for Rick and Jalen Brunson. I don't know how the NBA would handle that, if they would say, give us every single text between these very personal relationships that these people obviously have, and we'll go through and we'll say, all right, that's dad, that's dad, that's dad. No, that one you're being a president. It's just I don't like, that feels wrong to me. So I really don't know. I've heard a few things that I probably shouldn't say right now. Don't have them with enough certainty to say for sure, but I've heard a few things that they're curious about looking into, and it's stuff that's floating around the league. So the NBA, certainly, will, I'm very certain. Let's say it that way. Certainty implies 100%. I feel very certain the league will look into this. I just don't know if they're going to find enough or be able to legislate enough.
How do you prove it?
Yeah, exactly. For it to be anything other than another second round pick that they take away.
Yeah. I love I appreciate the confidence from some Mavs fans out there. Like, we're getting our first rounder back, baby. Like, wouldn't hold our breath on that one.
And that wouldn't happen anyway.
Yeah,
that's not how it works. The Mavericks wouldn't get anything for a tampering investigation. It would only be a punishment of the Knicks.
See, this should be part of the next CBA. The team losing should get something back for tampering. My last question about Brunson, and this is my only thing. Yeah, we know about the lack of extension before the season. However, we want to feel about the midseason, they didn't offer it. Well, if they did, would they have taken it and all of that stuff?
They definitely did not offer it midseason.
Okay, they didn't offer it.
We can talk about that a little bit more, but they did not offer it.
All right. I still do stuff for Mavs.com. So my question that I have is, if they weren't prepared to pay Brunson near 30 million, or the possibility of paying Brunson near 30 million, why did they keep him on the roster past the trade deadline?
I think that's a really good question. It's one I've asked myself. It's one that, even if I could say everything, like, I don't think I have a great answer for it. I'll say this. I know that the Mavericks entering this offseason, there was a belief around the team that Brunson would be coming back. And I don't know if that was foolish of them to think that, because the smoke was around months and months and months before. Yeah. And certainly the Mavericks were aware of even more than, what leaked out there. So I could see the argument that it was a little foolish. I could see the argument that things worsened around the deadline, and that even if Brunson, and I've kind of made this argument the mailbag I did on The Athletic.
The 14th.
Yeah. So I kind of made this argument. I think that there's a scenario where JB probably would not have taken the midseason extension, but then the Mavericks did not offer it. And he felt hurt by that, because the Mavericks, by not offering it, were basically saying, we want to at least keep options open. I think that Brunson's comments about feeling like he was going to stay in Dallas forever certainly indicates some change of heart. Now, there are a lot of actors involved in this, in terms of his Rick Brunson, in terms of Leon Rose, and, so on and so on and so on. And, maybe some of them were acting in a way to influence how JB felt about that. I don't know. I don't know. It's just, I can see those scenarios. But at some point, JB, Jalen Brunson had to have his mind change, or had to choose to change his mind, and was influenced by something the Mavericks did. And it does seem, if you really, I didn't watch the presser. I saw the quotes, but I saw the one clip where he kind of starts saying something and just pauses for a second. It's like, they just, and then there's a pause, and then he spins it in a way. He's like, oh, he realizes internally he can't actually talk about that. Yeah. And I would guess that there are people within the Mavericks organization who feel they should have handled that whole situation better. So
cool. I agree. On a lesser note, AJ Lawson, were you surprised that he just went to Minnesota and he didn't get a two-way spot? I thought he did enough to possibly get a two-way, but I mean, I know the Mavs like Moses Wright too, so you reported too, Tyler Dorsey stuff in that same mailbag on the 14th there. AJ Lawson to Minnesota.
I mean, I've had a long-standing theory not to get worked up about anything that happens at Summer League. So maybe they have their eyes on somebody else who played very well for another Summer League team who was not going to be signed by that respective team. So who knows for sure? I'm sure the Mavericks will find somebody interesting. Also, what are the chances AJ Lawson becomes a player?
Two-way spots mean everything.
You're killing me, Isaac. You're killing me. Yeah, just a long, a long line of success stories from the Mavericks two-way spots over the past few years, huh?
Yeah. Well, you put a list
Theo
of
Pinson.
players. Hey, I freaking love Theo Pinson. You
Yeah.
put a list of players. Somebody asked you about in that Q&A about the last roster spot, and because right now Mavericks obviously have one, and you put a list of players. I just got to list them off because there's some good ones there. You put Jake Layman, Justin Anderson, Simba, PJ Dozier. I like him. He actually was in Mavs camp a while back. Eric Bledsoe and Markieff Morris. I'm surprised Eric Bledsoe hasn't signed with anybody yet / the Lakers.
Right. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. I pulled up remaining free agents available and went through and picked a few that I liked and felt like over the years have had, better analytics than, maybe they've been discussed or mentioned and things like that. There was literally zero info to read into that. It was just some players who I'm like, they've had good seasons. And I'll be honest, if I really carefully vetted that list, there's probably a few I'd drop, And there might be reasons why Markieff Morris should never be a Maverick because Luka wouldn't, like playing with him, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, in fact, Markieff Morris is one where what he's been as a player lately is not too interesting. I thought he was actually a half decent player a few years back, but I would just say that was me just kind of going down a list and being like, well, these guys have been interesting role players before.
Yeah, they're still free agents, and I mean they could get signed by somebody.
Right.
Okay, last one for you. What was the most surprising move of the offseason or lack of move from the Mavs this offseason?
I mean, I wasn't anticipating the Christian Wood trade. I mean, there's like 3 moves to talk about, right?
I know.
I would say, I think it does have to be Christian Wood. I was pretty surprised by that. It just, it made sense the more I thought about it, but I didn't think it would be that easy. Here's the thing. The part of that surprised me is I didn't think it'd be that easy to get off all 4 salary dump guys.
Yeah.
At basically just the cost of the first round pick while also getting a pretty interesting asset back to use that, financial parlance. I really thought it'd be a little trickier, and I knew that they were going to be working towards that they didn't just want to waive all those guys, especially given their luxury tax situation. I would not have ever thought. I was texting somebody, so I think it happened like on a Wednesday evening, something like that. I was texting someone on another team being like, would you take Sterling Brown, just as a salary dump? What would it take? And the guy was texting me back, no, I wouldn't do that. He doesn't have that that level of value at this point. In Sterling Brown, I thought maybe out of those 4 that they traded was the only one who had a hope of having any level of value, just as a not.
Don't you disrespect Boban?
You know what I mean.
I'm just kidding.
I wrote the definitive Boban story. That's my guy.
You did. It was really good. Yeah. About being a teammate.
So to go from me texting someone on another team who was saying, yeah, we wouldn't take the most interesting of these 4 players, even as a salary dump, just as an experiment, to all 4 of them going, Christian Wood coming back, and the Mavericks only having to give up a very late first round pick. That to me was very surprising and really good front officing. And if that had happened in reverse, I think the sentiment of this offseason would be a little bit different. Not as high as it was, and deservedly so. But I do think fandom is affected by recency, and I think things would be a little bit higher.
Yeah, because it started off the whole offseason that happened before the league year flipped over, and it's like, oh, Christian Wood, we traded in for Jaden Hardy, the swing for Jaden Hardy. It's like you got all Mavs fans excited, and then JB left, and some fans were split about JaVale McGee, and I really like the JaVale. It's like, hey, a vet, for $5.5 million that does what they want at the center spot and is basically an upgrade over Dwight. Sign me up. And anyway, Tim, you're the man. I appreciate you showing off the guns, and anytime you want to do some curls together, let me know. You can probably curl more than I can, but you got a upcoming story coming out that we can tease, or a new episode that's coming out later this week?
I do have an episode tomorrow.
Let's go
with Brian Damaris. So that's gonna be
Ooh.
77 minutes. I've got a bunch of
He's
stories
good
that I'm
friends with
working.
Dirk, right?
He is absolutely. So he's and obviously former front office. So I think we were going to talk a little bit about the season, but also I want to pick his brain about just like how front offices work, and even what I know, like he is much more of an expert about just the process that teams go through, and I think it'd be interesting to dive into the minutia of that a little bit. So that's my plan. And so listen to that. It'll be out at some point on Thursday. We're not recording till the early afternoon, so keep an eye out for that. Then I just got a bunch of stories I'm working on. Nothing to tease imminently. Let's put it that way. But there's some medium and long-term stories I'm working on that they're gonna be good.
Heck yeah! All right, listen to 77 minutes later this week. Obviously, subscribe to their pod and all of Tim's work. If you're subscribed to this pod, tomorrow's pod will have one of the assistant coaches for the Mavs. So it'll be it's a fun episode, fun interview. Me and somebody hopping on. But Tim, you're awesome. Catch you soon.
See you, man.